During the pandemic, food delivery became very popular, and even after, people still had it sent to their homes. I was one of the order collectors, and when we were short-staffed, which was almost all the time, I would also deliver them. It wasn't a bad job. I really enjoyed driving to the homes of the people I met. Nice houses, and I didn't have to deal with constant customer questions, so I didn't complain. Sometimes I also got tips, which were mostly enjoyable, even though I left the groceries at the door, took a picture as proof, and then left. But I had moments where I could meet people and help them buy groceries. One example is this old lady from Serbia. Her name is Vesna, and she loves me. We got to know each other because every Thursday she had a lot of the exact same items ordered to her home at the same time. The first time I delivered her groceries, she never came out, but I saw her peeking at me from the window. I'd wave a little hand to take my picture, then go back to the truck and leave. I thought once she realized it was the same person delivering her groceries every time, she felt more comfortable. She would come out and greet me. Then slowly but surely, I started bringing her groceries in and putting them on her counter. She's quite old, so I happily help her, and she gives good tips too. The more I went, the more I got to know her. She's recently widowed and lives alone. All her children live far away, and she only sees them once or twice a year for holidays when she can take the train. She's also retired but used to be a real estate broker, explaining her nice house. I always looked forward to Thursdays, and this one was no different. She had ordered everything on Monday as she always did, and I would deliver it the next Thursday when I stopped by her driveway. I soon realized there was something off. She wasn't at the front door as usual, but the door was open. I also noticed all her curtains were closed, which was odd because she always opened them so her plants could get sunlight. I went to the open front door and didn't see her. I rang the doorbell. I waited a moment, but there was no answer. I knocked a few times, still no answer, so naturally I started to get a little worried. She's old, so my immediate thought was maybe she fell or had a heart attack or something. I stood there wondering what I should do. I thought maybe I should go in, but I was also working, and I knew the rule was if nobody answered, I should just leave the groceries on the porch as usual. But I decided the best thing was to go inside and at least put her groceries on the counter as usual. The door was open again, plus I grabbed all the bags with both hands and walked straight to the kitchen. All the lights were off, and it was silent. I put the bags on the counter and called her name again, but heard no response. When I started walking out to call, the police crossed my mind, but I wasn't sure how to explain it. It could be an emergency, because what if she just left the house? Maybe she was just visiting someone and I was just wasting the police officer's time. I was really in an awkward position, but I knew something was wrong. But as I reached the threshold to go outside, I heard movement in the house upstairs. I felt relieved for a moment, called Vesna, but then no response again. Nobody came to the door or answered after standing there for a minute. I kept hearing dragging sounds as if someone was moving things upstairs and started feeling very awkward and uncomfortable. I went back outside and got into the car. I sat there for a moment, and after a minute, I saw the curtains on the second floor being pulled aside, as if someone was looking at me through the window. I got out and drove around the block, then parked on the street, and sat there utterly confused. I didn't know if it was her, and she just didn't want to see anyone, or maybe one of her children. I was also worried if I should call the police or not. I went around the block and then decided to pass by her house again. I sat there for a moment again until I saw the curtains on the second floor open. I saw a man looking out and then quickly closing it as if seeing my truck scared him. I knew Vesna had 2 daughters and she had a son, but He had passed away years ago, so I wasn't sure who might be at her house with her not there and where she could be. But I had been there too long and had to get back to work the following week. No orders from her for the first time in almost a year. I drove to her house after I got off on Thursday, and there was a police car at the entrance. When I got to the house, I looked for her name and found out she had been reported missing just a few days after I was there to deliver her groceries. I noticed the dates they said she was likely last at home, even though it was the day after she ordered groceries 2 days before I went to her house and saw the man. I reported to the police with all the information I had. I didn't know who the man was or if I would also experience something happening to me, but it's been almost 3 years now, and there have been no updates. I went on Sunday night to earn extra money with DoorDash and Uber Eats. My friend showed me how to use both simultaneously and make more money per hour. One of the biggest problems in doing delivery services is having a lot of downtime, where you're just driving around waiting for orders to come in. But if you run both apps simultaneously, you can eliminate all that downtime and continuously make money. So I did this for a few hours, racing back and forth between home and restaurants, when I got small orders from the nearest restaurant, but the house was far. These were the worst kind of orders because you drive far and get paid less, even though this one offered a large amount, which meant the tip would be significant. I accepted the order and started the 25-minute journey to their address. Halfway there, while on the road, I received a call from the app, assuming it was the customer. I answered, and a man confirmed that he was my customer, apologizing profusely, saying he ordered from his friend's account and forgot to change the address. He said his house was just around the block and proceeded to give me directions and tell me some turns to take once. I arrived at my friend's house. I asked for her address just in case I got lost, but she answered by saying I would meet her outside, waiting for her, then hung up. Clearly this was not normal, but I was already more than halfway there. At this point, I gave the man the benefit of the doubt for forgetting to change it from his friend's address. It seemed like a legitimate thing that could happen. It could also be the fact that I was a bigger guy, which helped me reassure myself to get through with the delivery, because I wasn't too afraid of anything. When I reached my friend's supposed turn, as the man had said, and drove along the dimly lit neighborhood streets until I reached a dead-end sign and saw the street end just a few dilapidated houses away, feeling confident I had taken the turn as the man said. I pulled over and reached for my phone to call the customer, right when I clicked my last call. A tap on the driver's window made me jump slightly, embarrassed at how startled I was. I rolled down the window to greet him, but stared at the man. His face was emotionless, just a completely flat and empty face. I released the window button and immediately pressed the lock button, followed by the man pointing a gun at the center, open window right at my head as he yelled something. More voices calling back, followed by a group of people running to the car and trying to open the door handles. They all yelled orders at each other, but in the midst of the heat of the moment, I couldn't understand what they were saying. I was so shocked staring down the barrel of this man's gun. If I had to guess, at least 5 or 6 people were surrounding my car right now. I didn't even remember thinking anything, but I could only describe it as a reflex type reaction, because when the man holding the gun turned his face for a split second. Suddenly I slammed the gas pedal to the floor at the end of the street. I was surprised the man even held onto his gun as he pulled his hand out the window right as he saw at the end of the street. I immediately turned 3 figures, and when I faced the end of the street again, they were all gone. None of them were on the sidewalk or near the houses. They must have just fled. The scene as I started driving soon after I managed to get out of the neighborhood, where I called 911. Attacks like this from gang members are relatively common around here, but I never thought it would happen to me, even though there were no results and no one was found, and every evidence leads nowhere. I saw this event as some kind of warning for me. I realized the moment the man pointed the gun at my head that being a very confident person doesn't mean anything. Taking risks like that is a truly stupid act, because literally anyone with a gun can put your life on the line in an instant. If you do a job like this, or do anything where you often encounter strangers, be careful, because putting yourself in risky situations with strangers could be the last thing you do. Being a delivery driver for several pizza places a few years ago, I had a lot of experiences with strange customers or just weird things happening at night. But tonight, I received the prize for the most unsettling and unusual situation I've ever dealt with at that place. A special network pizza shop for less than a year. I worked the mid-shift and night shift with another co-worker, and we basically stayed busy until closing at 2 a.m., so there wasn't much time to fool around, especially since it was just the two of us. I would call my coworker Tom to keep his privacy. Tom is a few years older than me and is a hard-working, quiet guy. He was responsible for the night shift and would make all the pizzas while I would deliver them. We both would answer calls, depending on who was busy and who wasn't. It was just past 11 p.m., and I had just returned from a delivery when the phone rang. I saw Tom making pizza, so I picked up. A man on the other end spoke, asking for a large sausage pizza. I ordered it and asked if he needed anything else. The man didn't answer for a moment, then he repeated his own statement by saying he wanted a large sausage pizza this time. I could tell from the way he mumbled that he was likely drunk. I made sure he only wanted one pizza, and the man said yes. I sent the order, then took my next delivery, and returned to the shop. Tom had finished the guy's order and had it ready for delivery, so I picked it up from the counter and ran to my car. I noticed it as I was picking up the order, though Tom looked at me strangely as if he wanted to say something to me, but decided not to do it again, although Tom is quite quiet and soft-spoken, so not too strange. The address was a 15-minute drive away, but there was no traffic at this time, so I arrived there quite early. The house looked normal, but had a lot of land on both sides with the neighboring houses almost not visible through the trees. I got out and went to the passenger door to grab the pizza, then I headed to the porch and knocked on the door. A few seconds later, a man came and opened the door wide. This wasn't too strange, but I always felt weird when people opened the door that wide when it wasn't necessary. But his face when he saw me seemed very confused and surprised, as if he didn't expect to meet me, thinking he was just drunk and stumbled out from there. I handed him the box and told him the total amount, and he slowly and awkwardly gave me cash without saying anything. He held the pizza box while standing in front of me and staring at it with a strange intensity. Then he moved his eyes towards me, but not directly at me. He looked past my shoulder as if he saw something, but just stared at it with the same intensity, before shaking his head slowly as if he said no. Feeling very uncomfortable seeing this man. Reluctantly, I turned back. I turned my right shoulder and looked towards the driveway. A few meters from my car, there was a hooded man running back towards the trees. My heart jumped, and I felt my body experiencing some kind of shock as I tried to figure out what to do. I turned to face the man in front of the door, but he immediately stepped back and slammed the door shut. Everything happened so fast in just a few seconds, and didn't give me time to react with the door closed in front of me. I turned to face the hooded man again, but he got lost in the row of dark trees. I stumbled off the porch and ran towards my car, backing out of the driveway as quickly as possible and driving back to work. I calmed myself during the drive, but still didn't understand what happened when I returned. I told Tom about the meeting, which seemed to only react a little, and just told me to deliver the next order. When I was ready, I did what he said, but on the way back from the delivery, I finally pulled over and called the police just in case. They said they would send an officer to check it out and call me back to update me. I received a call about an hour later, and once I got home from work, I waited in the parking lot until the police arrived and spoke with me. When the officer approached my car, he mentioned that he had spoken to the man at the residence matching the description I had given him. And the man told the officer that he was just waiting for his friend Tom to show up because he knew he worked at the pizza shop. When asked about the hooded man, he didn't provide any details, saying he didn't know anything about it, and he didn't see anyone matching that description. I became even more scared and confused. I thought maybe they called because they thought Tom was a delivery driver and were trying to set him up, which would explain the hooded man by my car and the surprised man at the door. I also reconsidered the looks Tom gave me, thinking maybe he was trying to warn me about something. I've talked about it with Tom multiple times, but he gave me a quick and unhelpful answer, saying the man was just an old friend, and he didn't know anything about anything. I moved to another pizza shop immediately after the incident, but now the frightening situation has passed, and I know it probably wasn't specifically targeting me. I'm glad to try to solve the mystery. I still don't know for sure what the situation was, but so far, this is the weirdest and scariest situation I've ever experienced.